At L&M Fine Jewelry, we hand select our diamonds to give you the very best prices possible. Monty knows a great deal when he finds one. Find your great deal at L&M Fine Jewelry.
Your diamond destination.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Samuel Akem here, and I'm back with another one. I appreciate you guys for tapping in to yet another video on Tuesdays. It was a great week in Big Sky football. It was a great week in the FCS. We are going to get to all of that. But first, I want you guys to hit the subscribe button. I want you guys to hit that like button right now. I want you guys to leave me a comment down below. I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys on Saturdays, the people who come up to me and tell me that you've been watching my videos, the people that tell me that you guys have been supporting my content. I appreciate you so much. We are going to continue to grow and elevate and take this channel to the next level. Started small. Almost at 1.5 thousand subscribers, 1,500 subscribers. Let's see if we can get to 2,000 before the year ends. Run it up, run it up, run it up. Help me run my subscribers up. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for all the support. We are going to be talking about the Montana State versus UC Davis game. We're going to be talking about the Montana versus Portland State game. There was a lot that went on in that game that we need to discuss a lot. So please stay tuned for that topic. I got a lot I want to say about that. We also are going to be talking about everything that's going on in the rest of the FCS. We're going to take a look at the last week in FCS football. 1 week coming up. There's a lot of big games. A lot of auto bids have already been clinched. So we're going to talk about all of that in this week's video. But like I said in the beginning, make sure you hit the like. Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. Make sure you guys leave me a comment down below. And we will get into everything right after this. Okay, Montana State and UC Davis. They faced off in the Big Sky game of the week. It was number 2 versus number 4. UC Davis being number 4, Montana State being number 2. It was the Big Sky championship game. It was all the marbles were on the table. Everybody had to show up. The stars had to show up. And boy, did they. There were some things that I said needed to happen for UC Davis to have a chance. But there's also some things that I didn't mention that I thought were understood. If you're playing one of the top teams in the country, if you're playing one of the top teams in your conference, UC Davis did half the assignment. The other half of the assignment, I guess I should have mentioned it because they didn't do it. I'm obviously being facetious. They turned over the ball 2 times. Now, Miles Hastings is a damn good player, and he's the best quarterback, pure passer in the Big Sky Conference. He didn't have a clean game to start the game. He really, really picked it up in the second half. I mean, this game was crazy. I was with Coach Nuanez. He was talking to the SID at Montana State, and, you know, obviously he's a Bobcat fan. Obviously he's a longtime Bobcat fan. He's seen ups and downs from the Bobcats for years and years and years, and he was texting him talking about, you know, oh, you guys got this in the bag, and next thing you know, we were on delay because me and Coulter got hung up after the game. We were talking to people and had some conversations, and eventually we made it back to his house. We were watching the game, but we were behind. So he had texted him and was like, oh, you guys got this in the bag. He's like, it's not over. And once we finally caught up, we realized what he was talking about. It was not over. This game ended up being a 2-point game. I vehemently disagree with the 2-point play that they decided to go with. I will be breaking down that game. Or I have broken down that game at this point. I haven't broken down it yet. It's Sunday. I'm recording this before I've broken down the game. But make sure you guys go check out that breakdown. I have my thoughts about that 2-point play at the end of the game. But as it pertains to Montana State versus UC Davis, as it pertains to the comeback that UC Davis put on, it was an amazing comeback. I disagree with the 2-point play that could have tied the game. But the biggest thing is the turnovers. I keep dancing around it. Miles Hastings threw an interception. He also fumbled the ball. Those are the difference makers. And then they gave a special teams touchdown. You cannot do that. The interception was, I believe it was a tipped pass. I can't 100% remember. I think the interception was a tipped pass. The fumble was a sack fumble on Hastings. He fumbled the ball. Montana State defender right there. And then the punt return. I mean, Taco Dollar, what are you going to say? I mean, he's just a really good player. He makes things happen, and that is what it is. So from that standpoint, they did a really good Montana State did a really good job of taking away the ball. That's what you had to do. Montana State did not turn over the ball. They didn't turn over the ball. And Miles Hastings fumbled it once. They had one guy, Neil Daly, recovered a fumble. From a rushing standpoint, UC Davis did a really good job. And this was the other half of the assignment that I said that they had to do. Keep Montana State under 250. They kept them under 160. Montana State rushed it 34 times for 159 yards and 1 touchdown. So Julius Davis was their leading rusher with 91 yards. I did hear that Scottre Humphrey got injured in the first half, so that might have led. I mean, they got a really good offensive line, but Scottre Humphrey is a difference maker, and without him, things are much different for this Montana State team. Obviously, they have Tommy Mellott. Obviously, they have Adam Jones, but Scottre Humphrey is one of the best backs in the country currently. The other side of things, Land Larison. Man, this dude... I know what Tommy Mellott brings to the table. I fully 100% understand what Tommy Mellott brings to the table. But if I'm a coach voting on the Offensive Player of the Year for this conference, it's Land Larison. He's their leading receiver. He's their leading rusher. This man, Land Larison, had 112 rushing yards on 23 carries and a touchdown. He had 109 receiving yards on 8 receptions. This dude, and he was 1 for 1 in the passing game for 4 yards. This dude does it all. He absolutely dominated the game. He was the difference maker in the game for them. He made a really, really big play for UC Davis late in that game that really kept them, allowed them to potentially tie the game. Or was that, I can't remember if that was the play that got them to the tie, but there was a lot of big plays that happened late in this game. Go check out the breakdown if you guys want the specific breakdown on all the plays that happened and what led to what happening. But Land Larson had a really big game. UC Davis falls to 9-2, 6-1 in conference play, 9-2 overall. Montana State moves to 11-0, 7-0 in conference, and they are 1 win away from being 12-0 in the regular season. I don't know if that's ever happened for them. I don't think it has. Somebody in the comments can let me know if it has or hasn't, but it's a really good game for Montana State, really good game for UC Davis. Those turnovers were obviously the difference. I think if they don't turn over the ball, we're talking about a different game right now. But obviously the game was played on turf. The game was played last night, and UC Davis did turn over the ball. Unfortunate for them. It's a tough outcome for them when you really look at the statistical breakdown of everything. Let's look at the team stats. 16 first downs for Montana State, 21 for UC Davis. 6 of 15 on third down for Montana State, 4 of 12 for UC Davis. 2 of 2 on fourth down for Montana State, 0 for 0. Total yardage, 416 for UC Davis, 333 for Montana State. 174 passing yards versus 324 for UC Davis. 159 rushing yards for Montana State, 92 for UC Davis. Now, one thing that Montana State did do at a very, 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 very high level is they got to the quarterback. I think it had 5 or 6 sacks in this game. I don't think they have sack totals on here, but Montana State was getting to the quarterback at a high level. They put Miles Hastings on the ground over and over and over and over again. One of those sacks is the reason Miles Hastings fumbled the ball. So tough from that standpoint for UC Davis. They're going to look at this film, and they're definitely going to think that they could have done better. They're definitely going to think that, they could have put some better things together and had a better outcome. But, I don't think there's any reason for them to feel bad about the outcome that they had. You played the number 2 team in the country, and it came down to the wire. Got to believe that neither of these teams will really... Montana State's not going to fall in the standings, but got to believe that UC Davis shouldn't fall too far. I say, if at anything, 5 or 6, if they don't stay at 4. There's no reason they should fall. You lost to the number 2 team, and you showed that you are right there next to them, just as good, if not better, than them. So, not better. Obviously, they didn't win, so you can't say they're better than them right now. But you can't say that you're not just as good as that Montana State team. No team has been able to hold this team under 200 rushing yards all season. I think their lowest output, Coulter said, was 290, and that was the only time that they've been under 300 this year, and that was against Mercyhurst, of all teams, Mercyhurst, the new FCS team, the newest FCS team. And they held them to 159. So held them under 200, held them under 160, 1 yard under 160. So 130 yards under their lowest output of the season. Really, really good game for UC Davis in terms of stopping the run. I don't think there's any reason to be mad about this outcome. Obviously, you would have loved to get the victory, but you can take a lot of good things away from this game. You can understand that. Is UC Davis a contender? Potentially. If they can play like they played against Montana State, minus the turnovers, I think there's a chance for them to genuinely be a contender. A lot of people think this is a 3-team race this year: Montana State, North Dakota State, and South Dakota State. I think South Dakota and UC Davis have a chance to potentially slide themselves in that conversation, but we will see. It was an amazing game to watch. They played really, really good football. It was awesome. I mean, this was a great game. It looked like it was going to be a blowout, or not necessarily like a blowout, but it looked like it wasn't going to be close. And then UC Davis, being the team that they are, they didn't give up, and they were able to come out and make it a close game. 2-point conversion away from going to overtime, and you never know what can happen in overtime. I would have loved to see overtime. I disagree with the 2-point play they did. I really did not like the 2-point play that they did, but I'm not the coach. I'm not the offense coordinator. That is for everybody else to talk about and make decisions about, but I did not like the 2-point play, and that's what I have to say about that. Now, as it pertains to going forward, Montana State, obviously, if you're tapped into FCS football, if you're tapped into the Big Sky, if you're tapped into Montana State football, it's Cat Grizz week. Now, everybody knows where I went to school. If you've watched my channel, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm a Grizz. So you know where I'm leaning this week. But also, if you've watched my channel, you know how many flowers I have given Montana State this year. I've been I mentioned at the beginning of the season, if you've been an active follower of this channel, I want to be objective this season. Montana State is really, really good. Now, with that being said, I do think there's a lane for Montana to win this game. There's some things that have to happen for Montana to win this game. I will cover those later in the video. But Cat Grizz week for Montana State. It's also a rivalry game for UC Davis and Sac State. They will play their rivalry game. I don't think UC Davis will have any problems getting that victory. For UC Davis to win the Big Sky now, they have to hope that Montana beats Montana State. We will see about that. But I want you guys to let me know what you guys thought about this Montana State versus UC Davis game. I think it was one of the best games. I would honestly say it was the best game in the Big Sky Conference this year. In Big Sky Conference play, the Montana State versus UC Davis game was the best game we have seen this year. There haven't been a ton. I mean, we can talk about Idaho State and Eastern Washington. They put up a ton of points. Eastern Washington scored on every drive of the game, 11 drives, 11 touchdowns. That is a different story for a different day. They had like almost 100 points. There was like 70 points put up in the first half of that game. Amazing football game. A lot of good football being played. But there was good football being played in this Montana State and UC Davis. If it's in terms of top teams in the conference and, you know, everything on the line, the Big Sky Championship game was the best game of the season, bar none. You guys let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and I will move on. Okay. Next, I want to talk about Montana versus Portland State. It was a interesting game in Montana in Missoula from a multitude of reasons. The power went out late in the fourth quarter, middle of the fourth quarter. There was quarterback injuries during the game. There was quarterback coaching scuffles in the game, which is not something you see with somebody being coached by Coach Hauck. A lot of people are happy that Logan Fife did what he did. Some people are like, this is not a great look. But I think it is a microcosm of what this Montana team has been going through all season long. And I think tensions just kind of boiled over. What am I talking about? Montana has been having a quarterback controversy all season long. A lot of people... There's two sides of this argument this season going on with the quarterback controversy of Montana. There's one side of this argument that says Logan Fife has been playing the best football at the quarterback position for Montana. He should be your guy. And there's other side of things where people look at the numbers. If you look at quarterbacks who have won the national championship, it has been homegrown quarterbacks who started at that school and were built up to be a national champion. I think it's like 17 or 18 of the last 20 national champions have been homegrown guys, not transfers. So from that standpoint, the data says that a transfer is not going to get you what you ultimately want, which is a national championship. All that being fair. Be as it may with what the data says, Logan Fife has been playing the best football. I believe that Logan Fife has been playing the best football. I was one of the people early on saying, I get what we want to do with Ayat. I get what he's bringing to the table, but I believe that Logan Fife should be the guy going forward for this Montana team. Based on what I've seen on film, based on what I've seen on the field. I've been to all the home games. I've watched all the away games. I've seen it all. Logan Fife has been the guy, in my opinion. Even with the Weber State loss, Logan Fife has been the guy in my opinion. I was not on his side early on. He really proved me wrong with that Eastern Washington game, with the Weber State game. Late in that Western Carolina game, he played really well. And he's been the one who's been able to complete deep balls down the field. There has not been a ton of success from the Ayat standpoint of things, being able to complete balls down the field. Ayat gets hurt. So let me back up a little bit. Ayat started this game. Last week, there was a lot of controversy against UC Davis and Montana, ranked matchup in Missoula. A lot of people feel like no matter what Montana should win that game, being played at home. Montana could not get anything going offensively. But if you look at the first drive of the game, let's look at the first 2 drives of that UC Davis-Montana game. First drive of the game, Logan Fife drives them down the field, gets them a touchdown. They take the 7-0 lead. Next drive, I think it was a 7-0 lead at that point. It might have been, I can't remember what the scoring distribution was, but he put up 7 points his first drive of the game. Easy peasy, touchdown to Junior Bergen on a nod route. Next drive of the game, Logan Fife is on a 3rd and medium, like 3rd and 6. They throw the ball to Cole Grossman across the middle of the field. He drops it. There's nothing Logan Fife can do about that. It was a little bit behind, but Cole Grossman, a 2-time All-American, should make that catch 10 times out of 10 times. It wasn't a tough catch to make. You got to make that catch. He's missed 2 years of football, so from that standpoint, I think everybody kind of understands, but we don't really understand because it's a ranked matchup at home. You got to make that catch. Be that whatever it is, be that happened. Next drive, Hauck comes in the game, and he doesn't do too great. I mean, he doesn't do too hot. Things aren't moving very successfully. Then you try to put Logan Fife back in a couple drives later. He's not doing too hot. I think at that point, after those first 2 drives with Logan Fife, once you then take him out of the game, his confidence is struck, his momentum is struck, and you're not going to be able to get things going the way you think that you want to get them going. It's not going to be as smooth flowing as you want it. It wasn't as smooth flowing, and Montana only ended up putting up 14 points in the game. There was a drive later on in the game where Hauck was able to drive down the field in the second half. He ran it in on a touchdown, flipping into the end zone. That ended up being the only points that they put up in the game. The only other points that they put up in the game, that 7 points from Hauck and the 7 points from Fife. So each of them scored a touchdown. A lot would say that Fife looked better in that game. Okay, hard to tell who really looked better in that game. The stats were really the stats didn't tell the whole story, and neither of them got consistent play outside of Fife starting and then getting taken out after that second drive. Okay, well, you get a bigger sample size in this Portland State game. Hauck starts the game. The offense absolutely cannot get anything going. He throws an interception in the red zone in the first half to take away points from the Montana team, and then he gets hurt late in the second half. Fife comes in the last 2 plays of the second half, gets sacked, and then they run a fake spike to Eli Gilman to close out the half. Fife comes out in the second half, puts together 4 touchdown drives. He throws 3 touchdown passes. He was 9 for 14 in the second half, 197 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he rushed in a touchdown. The offense looked like it was flowing much more smoothly with Fife. You guys can go watch my breakdown about that to see what I had to say about that in terms of how the offense was looking. But Fife was dealing. He was absolutely dealing. And it makes you think, if Fife had played this whole game in the first and second half, he put up 4 touchdowns in the second half. How many points would he have put up in this game? 5, 6, 7? I say 7 to 8 touchdowns is what he would have put up in this game had he played the whole game. But he didn't. And that is what a lot of people on social media had a problem with, is you don't play Fife. There's been a quarterback controversy all season. I get that you want to develop Hauck. And I understand that. It's a tough position to be in if you're the offensive coordinator. You want to develop this quarterback on one end, but also you got this quarterback who's playing good football who feels like he should be on the field. It's tough. But if you want to win, if you want to be a winning team, if you want to be victorious this season, you got to go with Fife, and you got to keep him in the game. You cannot try to rotate Hauck in the game. You can develop Hauck in the offseason. Give him some more time to develop. Let him take all of the 1 reps in the offseason. Let him be the guy. And that is another point that I want to make about this quarterback controversy of Montana is, if you want somebody to be the guy, if you want to develop them, if you want to instill them with confidence, let them know that they're the guy. Let them know that they are the guy. I love my dog Keenan. I had a really good start to the season in 2018. When they let me know that I was the guy by letting me start the game and rotating Samori and Keenan in that 2018 season, that gave me a ton of confidence to know I'm the guy now. I'm going to go off this year. It's my job to lose, and I could feel confident in that. I think that's what they need to do with Hauck. Let him know that he is the guy this offseason. Let him know that you guys are going to be going forward with him. Don't bring in a transfer. If it's Fife too, let Fife know this offseason he's going to be the guy. Don't bring in anybody else. Don't rotate Hauck in. When Dalton Sneed was here and he was and the one team was in, if he was healthy, Dalton Sneed was in. When Cam Humphrey was here, those are my 2 quarterbacks. When he was here, when he was the one after Dalton left, he was getting the 1 reps. Nobody else was getting 1 reps. Those guys knew they were the guys, and that gave them a certain level of confidence. You have to do the same thing for Fife, or Ayat, whoever you want to go forward with, you got to do the same for them. Let them know they are the guys and let them feel that energy from the coaching staff. We are all human beings. We all feed off of energy. We all understand what is going on. We are not dumb. And if you are playing somebody else in concert with me at the same time as me, I'm going to feel a type of way. Whether you outwardly express it or not internally, you feel that. Well, you have all of that. Let's go back a little bit. Fife scores that first touchdown. He threw a pass. The passing game looked really good with Fife in there. Fife knows how to read the RPOs. If you watch my breakdown, he does a really good job of understanding what the numbers in the box are and where he can exploit the defense at. He's not got favorable numbers in the box. I'm going to pull it and throw the RPO. If I got favorable numbers in the box, I can hand this off. But a lot of times, and this is something I've noticed from Fife a lot, he wants to throw the ball. He wants to get the ball in the receiver's hands and let them work. That was another thing that Dalton Snead did a lot. If I can throw this ball to my receiver and let him work, I'm going to get the ball to him. If there's a window on that RPO, I'm going to try to squeeze it in there. And I see some similarities from them in that standpoint. Well, Fife throws a slant to Aaron Fonts on an RPO. He gets down on the 1 yard line. Next play, he sneaks it in. Throws the ball up, he gets an unsportsmanlike penalty, and all hell breaks loose. You didn't start the game. I don't think Coach Hauck is very fond of you. I don't think he thinks very highly of you. Coach Hauck absolutely rips him on the sidelines. Everybody cares. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be a Big Sky champion. Everybody wants to be a national champion. Everybody just wants to give their best and be a contributing member of a football team. Well, Logan Fife had enough. He was very angry at what had taken place last week. He was very angry at the fact that he didn't get to play the whole game last week. He finally gets in the game. He scores a touchdown. He unfortunately gets an unsportsmanlike penalty. Coach Hauck is saying mother effing him. You see him on the TV copy say F you. You know, Coach Hauck is a big team guy. You don't choose yourself over the team. Coach Pease is similar in that way. But Logan Fife snapped. He had enough. I don't know what he said, but you see him on the TV copy, snapping back at him. Don't talk to me like that. You're not going to Like, I don't know what he was saying, but they were going at it. A lot of people were saying they pushed each other. I didn't see any pushes in any of the videos I saw. Maybe there were some people who saw it on the field that they were pushing each other, but they were going at it, arguing back and forth, MFing each other. You could tell a lot of passion in it. They go to commercial break. They come back from commercial break. Logan Fife and Coach Hauck are hugging each other and consoling each other and talking to each other and letting them know, Coach, I'm sorry. I got into it. My passion got the best of me, you know, and I know this because this is what they said after the game. You know, my passion got the best of me. You know, and Coach Hauck mentioned in the post-game presser, I appreciate you having that passion about it. You know, I care, but he said something to the effect of, you know, I care about football just as much as you, Coach. Like, I care about this just like you do. You know, I want to win just like you do. And, you know, I feel that, man. I feel that. Like, when you want to win so bad and you feel like I bring something to the table to where if you have me in this game, we are going to win. I mean, I want a player like that on my team. Put me in the game, we are going to win. I want somebody with passion. I want somebody who cares. I want somebody who, does it mean something to you? Or is this just, like, I want somebody who genuinely cares, who genuinely thinks, if I'm in the game, we are going to win this game. I need that on my team. I need that. And I feel that. I feel that, Fife. And I think a lot of people who were watching that, although it's not a pretty sight to look at, people feel that. Like, yes, energy. Like, you want to win. I want to win. Put me in, Coach. Don't MF me. I know I got the unsportsmanlike, but our offense has been anemic. I just came in this second half, and got you a touchdown like that. Drove you guys down the field like that. I get that I got the unsportsmanlike, but Coach, come on. Give me a break. Like, I'm putting my life, I'm putting my heart and soul into this team, Coach. I care. I want to win. It matters to me. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the hell out of that from Fife. You know, I love that energy. I love that he cares about it. I love that it matters to him. I love that it means something to him. And it fires me up. That stuff fires me up. So I know a lot of fans were echoing that sentiment that I just said, like that it fires you up. I want it to matter. And, you know, in my time, I've never seen anybody snap on Coach Hauck like that. And, you know, Coach Hauck probably has never had anybody snap on him like that. Coach Hauck is a very authoritarian coach. Nobody snaps at him like that. And at some point, it gets to be enough. And a coach, honestly, sometimes Coach Pease would say that to us too, is like, when are you going to snap on me and show me that you care? There were some days where, it just was too much for me. The coaches would get on you. And sometimes you just got to snap and just say, like, it's just got to become enough. You got to let your passion show outwardly. You got to outwardly show that passion, and that is what it was from Fife. They ended up being all right. They were sitting next to each other in the post-game presser. I think it was really the most vulnerable that anybody had ever seen Coach Hauck be in a post-game presser. It was really cool for me to see, having been played for Coach Hauck and understanding who he is as a person and not really getting to see that vulnerability all the time. To see him be vulnerable in the post-game presser, it was really cool to see. It was really cool to see. It was some really genuine moments in that post-game presser. But Logan Fife played really good football. And I know now the question becomes, if Ayat is healthy enough to play this week, is he going to start the game, or is Fife going to start the game? Obviously, there was a lot that took place in this Portland State game, but I think it's hard to argue with the fact that the offense looks better when Fife is in there. I mean, they were able to put together a lot of scoring drives in the second half. They were able to put up points consistently, and I don't know. I think if you got Logan Fife, you got to go with Logan Fife. If you're not too mad at him as a coaching staff, you got to play Logan Fife. He's your best option. If you want any chance of winning Cat Grizz, any chance at all, you got to go with Logan Fife, in my opinion. In my opinion. I said that early on in the season. Obviously, they want to develop Ayat. I get that. But that was really the big thing that happened later in the game as well. Montana, the stadium in Missoula, lost power. So for the last 6 minutes of the game, they were having to tell us how much time was left in the game. They were keeping track of the time on the field. And, nobody who was watching the broadcast could watch the game. There was a few people who started to live stream the game from their phones. Skyline Sports live streamed the game as well from his Coulter had live streamed the game on Skyline Sports from his phone. So people were able to watch from that standpoint, but it was crazy. It was crazy. I've never seen the power go out in Washington Grizzlies Stadium, and it wasn't even a sellout or anything. So I don't know what happened. I have no idea what happened. Maybe the breaker just, crapped out or whatever. I don't know, but the broadcast was down. We had to do the post-game show on our phones. We had to call the Learfield station to do the post-game show. So, yeah. Well, now Montana will move its focus to Cat Grizz. The biggest game of the season for both Montana and Montana State. I know Montana State just played a ranked matchup against UC Davis, but no game will ever beat Cat Grizz. It is in Bozeman this year, being played in the Cat House. It's going to be an amazing game. I will be there on site. I cannot wait. It's going to be an awesome environment. It's going to be rocking. The fans are going to be excited. Everybody's going to be excited. It's going to be a really exciting game to watch. I can't wait. I love Cat Grizz. I love college football. I was really excited for that UC Davis game. But Montana, what do I think Montana has to do in order to get a win in Cat Grizz? I will talk about that later in this video. But let me know what you guys think about that Montana versus Portland State game. What were you guys' thoughts about the scuffle between Hauck and Fife? What were you guys' thoughts about all of it? Leave a comment down below, and I will move on. Okay. I did not watch this game live, but Eastern Washington versus versus Idaho State. Now, Eastern Washington has not had the best season. They have not had the best season. It's been a long season for Eastern Washington. And it's been tough. It's been tough for them, and they haven't been able to get too much going for themselves. But if you look at the scoring breakdown and the drive breakdown from Eastern Washington, they did not punt one time. They scored on every drive that they touched the ball. They got points. Really, really good game from Eastern Washington. They moved to 4-7 on the year, 3-4 in conference play. Idaho State moves to 5-6 on the year, 3-4 in conference play as well. Eastern Washington is trying to squeeze themselves in that lower to middle tier with Idaho State. There's some tiers in the Big Sky. We don't have to go down it, but it was a crazy. The box score is crazy to look at from this game. I didn't watch this game. I need to go back and watch this game. I did a breakdown on Eastern Washington and Idaho State last year. Idaho State had a crazy comeback. Eastern Washington missed a field goal. This year, Eastern Washington decided not to make it close. We are going to put them out of their misery. We're going to score on every drive. It was on the Inferno. It was like 29-40. It was like 28-49 in the first half of this game. Crazy output of points. These teams were scoring a lot. Kakoa Vispris, the quarterback, one of the most accurate quarterbacks in college football, in FCS football. 14 for 14, 206 yards, and a touchdown. On the ground, 9 carries, 48 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kakoa Visperas had 4 touchdowns. Jared Taylor, their backup quarterback, Wildcat type guy, 18 carries, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns. Really big output. And then the best receiver and almost one of the best receivers in FCS football, the best receiver in the Big Sky for sure, Efton Chisholm, 12 receptions, 157 yards, and a touchdown. Now, Idaho State also put up 42 points. Their quarterback threw the ball 54 times, 37 for 54, 370 yards, 4 touchdowns, and interception. Really, in this game, to keep up for Idaho State, they would have had to just keep putting up points. And there's some drives where they had to punt. There was one interception thrown. You know, you gotta keep putting up the points to be able to keep up with what Eastern Washington is doing. I mean, this Eastern Washington offense makes you think, dang, what could have been? If they could just string some stops together defensively in some games, they could have been a whole different team this year. And that was my point from the beginning of the year, man. Like, you guys should have been better. You guys should have been better this year, and you weren't. And it's devastating. But they only ran for 114 yards. Eastern Washington ran for 478 yards. Let me go back to Eastern Washington. 5 carries for Michael Wortham, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. They had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns on the ground. 10 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown for a total of 11 touchdowns. This was a crazy game from Eastern Washington. Malik Dotson had a touchdown. Kakoa Visperas had 3. Brandon Montoya had 1 touchdown. Jared Taylor had 3. Michael Wortham had 2. Goodness. The passing game. Kobe Tracy threw for 70 yards. Jeff Weimer, 14 receptions, 134 yards, no touchdowns. Christian Fredrickson, 9 receptions, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sion Nunley, 6 receptions, 63 yards, a touchdown. Raiden Brown, 4 receptions, 21 yards, a touchdown. 4 passing touchdowns, 4 receiving touchdowns, however you want to phrase it. It was a crazy game. It was an absolutely crazy game from Eastern Washington and Idaho State. Neither of these teams are playoff teams. Efton Chisholm's season will be over after one more game. It's going to be the ending of an amazing career. Eastern Washington can look forward to playing spoiler to Northern Arizona. Northern Arizona will be on that playoff bubble if they are able to get a victory against Eastern Washington. And Eastern Washington can take all the hopes of them being on the bubble out if they beat them. They will not be a playoff team if they lose to Eastern Washington. Unfortunately, you can't let a 7-win team get into the playoffs this year. There's going to be so many 8-win teams this year. 7 wins is not going to be enough with so many teams. With most of the FCS playing 12 games this year, 7 wins is not going to be enough to get in the playoffs. So unfortunately, Eastern Washington can play spoiler. Northern Arizona has to hope that they can get that victory. That game will be played in Flagstaff. Efton Chisholm's last game of his career. Hopefully they can get him a crazy output. He already gets a ton of targets, but hopefully they target him about 40 times in that game so he can be victorious, man. Really crazy game from Eastern Washington. Eastern Washington completed 100% of their passes. They were 15 of 15. They only threw 15 passes in this game. They rushed for 470. I mean, rushing for 478 yards is absolutely crazy. I don't think this Eastern Washington offensive line gets enough love, but they are a unit, and they move people. A lot of times in the past, it's been that Eastern Washington could run the ball all over the place, and that was how they made their money. But this year, it's really, they can throw the ball, and their quarterback is damn accurate, but they have one of the best offensive lines in the conference, and they're one of the better rushing teams in the conference. They just have no defense. 42 points when you put up 77. I mean, that is a perfect example of that right there. I don't have too many thoughts about this game. Idaho State will play Idaho next week, and they're one of their protected rival games. Idaho also looking to be a playoff team. If they're able to get 9 wins next week, be a 9-3 football team, after everything that this Idaho team has been through this season, to finish the season 9-3, good for them. So they can finish the season 9-3. Eastern Washington can finish the season at best 5-7 and play spoiler. Hopefully Northern Arizona is able to get that victory. It would be really good to see the Big Sky get 5 teams into the playoff, but we will see. You guys let me know what you thought about this Eastern Washington versus Idaho State game. It was a pretty cool game to see from the box score perspective, but yeah, we will see what they are able to do next week. You guys let me know, and I will move on. Okay, my last Big Sky game reaction is Idaho versus Weber State. I don't want to talk about this game for long at all. Jack Lane was back for Idaho. I don't know what was wrong with him last week. I don't think he played last week, but this week he was back to help Idaho get their 8th win of the season against a not great Weber State team, but they decide when they want to show up and when they don't want to show up. They make some games close, and then some games it just I don't know. This Weber State team is very weird. And it's very weird because in my time in the Big Sky, Weber State was the staple. Them, Sac State, those were the two teams that were really battling it out. Weber State early on in my career, Sac State later on in my career. But, Jack Lane, 18 for 27, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception. In the run game, Art Williams, 10 carries, 67 yards. Nate Thomas, 13 carries, 46 yards. Deshaun Buchanan only had 4 carries for 11 yards. I mean, I really think they need to put all their stock in him. He is one of the better running backs that they have. He looks really good the last 2 weeks. This week, obviously, not so much. Mark Hamper. Let me tell you about Mark Hamper. First off, for all of my Grizz fans paying attention to this, Nick Osmo is dating Mark Hamper's sister. I don't know her name, but something Hamper. Nick Osmo is dating her big sister. His big sister. Mark Hamper is leading the conference in yards per catch at 21 yards a catch. Now, it might have went up after this game yesterday. He had 8 receptions for 187 yards and a touchdown. He's now averaging 21 and a half yards a catch. He's got 37 receptions, 797 yards, 4 touchdowns. I could see him being an all-conference performer just based off his stats alone. But, I mean, his yards per catch are staggering, man. 8 receptions, 187 yards, 3 touchdowns yesterday. Jordan Dwyer had 4 catches, 34 yards, no touchdowns. A lot of people think Jordan Dwyer is the guy on that team. He's got a lot of juice. I think he's a really good receiver. But honestly, when I look at Mark Hamper and what he's able to do, he's a difference maker, man. He's a really good player. Coach Eck knows how to coach those receivers up very, very well. They play good football over there. And, yeah, Mark Hamper, I mean, I've been impressed. 21 and a half yards a catch is amazing. That's probably one of the tops in the country. He's probably top 5 with that output. I mean, depending on how many receptions guys have had, because some guys get like few receptions and they end up having a crazy yards per catch throughout the season. But Mark Hamper is probably one of the tops in that statistic in the country. I'd probably say top 10, top 15, depending on where everybody falls. Richie Munoz threw the ball 32 times for 20 completions, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. They didn't rush the ball very well at all. But Damon Bankston rushed the ball for 54 yards. He rushed it 11 times. He's got 1,100 rushing yards on the season. He was their leading rusher. Their leading receiver was Jacob Sharp, who received it 3 times for 67 yards and a touchdown. He's up to almost 800 yards on the season. He's got 795 yards and 9 touchdowns on 51 receptions. One more game for him to maybe get close to that 900, maybe 1,000 if he can get 205 yards in this next game, since they won't be a playoff team. But really good game, really good season so far for Jacob Sharp. He is a senior, so this is his last season. He's having a pretty good season. Davion Godley, the running back, was their second leading receiver, 35 yards. Weber State is a very weird team. I don't know what to think about them. They've had a tough season. They play some teams close, but then some teams they get blown out by. I think at one point they were leading Idaho, if I remember correctly. I might be misremembering that game, but it was a close game. It was a close game throughout, and they ended up losing by a touchdown. Yeah, it was 16-14, so they weren't leading, but they were down by 2, and then Idaho scored, making it 23 to 16, 23 to 14, and then Idaho scored again, and they must have went for 2 somewhere in there, if I'm remembering correctly. Or either they got field goals, or I don't know. Idaho won, Weber State lost. Idaho's looking to be a playoff team. They play Idaho State next week. Idaho State could potentially play spoiler, but I think even if Idaho were to lose that game against Idaho State, they'd probably still be a playoff team. They've been one of the better ranked teams throughout the year. They got a really good D-line. Jack Lane leads that team. I think they could be a quarterfinal team at best with this Idaho squad, maybe a semifinal team, but I really see them that quarterfinal. Offensively, I think they're still a step below some teams offensively. They put up points, but I think they're still missing something offensively that a lot of teams have. But it was a good game. Idaho got the victory. They could be 9-3, which is crazy to think about. Weber State, they're 3-8, 2-5 in conference. They will face off against Cal Poly next week. So 3-8 Cal Poly versus a 3-7 Weber State. Is Weber State, what are they? 11. Cal Poly's only playing 11 games this year. Okay. Interesting. Either way, you guys let me know what you thought about the Idaho-Weber State game down below, and I will move on. Okay. The question that a lot of people have been asking, and I want to ask it one last time before we actually get an answer next week for the playoff show, which will be on Sunday. I cannot wait to watch that playoff show. It's going to be very exciting. Does Montana State deserve the 1 seed if they win this week? Does Montana State deserve the 1 seed if they win this week? No. And there's for one reason. Not because they're not a good team. Number 2 is still good. They'll get home field advantage all the way through the playoffs if they get the number 2 seed. So that's not a bad look to get the number 2 seed. It doesn't really matter once you get to the national championship. If you're the 2 seed, that's still good standing. The one reason why I don't think they deserve the 1 seed is because strength of schedule. North Dakota State beat an Illinois State when they were ranked. They beat a Southern Illinois when they were ranked. They beat North Dakota when they were ranked. They beat a South Dakota State when they were ranked number 1. They just beat a Missouri State who was ranked in the coaches poll. They almost beat a Colorado. You're not taking good losses, but if you're looking at how good a team is, Colorado's 8-2 right now, looking to go to the Big 12 championship if they're able to get a victory. I think they got 2 more games, so they need. I don't know who they have to finish their season, but they're looking to be Big 12 champions. They're looking to be in contention for Big 12 and potentially the college football playoff. So Colorado looks really good, and Northern Dakota State was 5 yards away from beating them. So all I got to say about that. That is all I got to say about that in terms of North Dakota State. But North Dakota State has beat a ton of ranked teams, and they finished the season with the South Dakota. If they win that game and are ranked 5th overall, 4th overall, whatever they're going to be at, top 10, the South Dakota team, the resume speaks for itself. Montana State, on the other hand, they beat a New Mexico, an FBS opponent who is not great. They beat Wazoo yesterday, though. Wazoo was 8-1. They're now 8-2. New Mexico beat them, so that's a really good victory for Montana State. That's a good victory for Montana State. It looks better and better. It bodes well for them. Do I think there's a case for them to get the number 1 seed? Yes, because they've looked the best team, one of the best teams in the country, wire to wire. Outside of that New Mexico game, they haven't really struggled with anybody. They beat an Idaho when they were ranked number 7. They beat a UC Davis when they were ranked number 4, and probably will still be ranked 5th or 6th in the country after this week, or maybe still number 4. Who knows? But Montana State is a really good team. I think they're deserving of the 1 seed had there not been a North Dakota State above them. If there wasn't a North Dakota State with the resume that they have, I think if you look at anybody else's resume, I think Montana State has a good case to get the number 1 seed. But with North Dakota State and what they have done this year and how they've beat up on teams and how they've made it look not close against basically anybody outside of South Dakota State, I think it's really hard to justify giving Montana State the 1 seed over North Dakota State. 2 seed, they got it locked down. If they win this week, they got the 2 seed locked down. I don't even know, even if they lose this week, I don't know how much you hurt them for that being 11-1, but they're 11-0. It would be really cool to see a Big Sky team go 12-0, and yeah. But I don't think they deserve the 1 seed. Even if they win this week, I don't think they deserve the 1 seed. Obviously, the playoff committee will make its decision, but I think they're taking strength of schedule. Well, no, because they're using the metrics now. So I don't know. I think strength of schedule is one of the metrics, but they're taking these metrics this year that they're using to justify the rankings, and we will see what those justifications are. We will see what those justifications are. But if you're talking about Montana State and North Dakota State, I think Montana State deserves the number 2 seed if they win this week, and I think North Dakota State if they win. Now, say Montana State wins, North Dakota State loses to South Dakota. Montana State is the 1 seed. There's no discussion about that. 12-0. They won every game that they played this year. They will have won every game that they played this year. They deserve the 1 seed. But that's yet to be seen. So we will see. You guys let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. If you have an opposing argument to what I just said, please leave it in the comments. Please let me know. Let me know what you guys think, and I will move on. Okay, it is Cat Grizz week, Brawl of the Wild week, Battle of the Brawl, if you want to call it, a la Clifton McDowell, who came in, got a Big Sky championship for the Grizz. The Grizz are forever appreciative to what he was able to do for Montana last year. A lot of people wish he would have stayed. A lot of people are happy he got out of here, but it is Brawl of the Wild week. Montana State versus Montana. One of the biggest rivalries in FCS football, if not the biggest rivalry in FCS football. One of the biggest games played every year in the Big Sky Conference. Probably the biggest game played in the Big Sky Conference every year. There's a lot standing. There's a lot on this game every year. It's the last game of the season. A lot of Coulter Nuanez of Skyline Sports thinks that this game should be played near the middle of the season, similar to how South Dakota State and North Dakota State play theirs towards the middle of the season, so that it doesn't have so much hanging in the balance in terms of playoff standings, seeding, all that stuff. Colton Nuanez thinks it'd be very good for the Big Sky if Montana State is able to win this game. A 12-0 Big Sky team, a number 2 seed coming out of the Big Sky. They'll get home field advantage to go hopefully to a national championship if they're able to win all their games. But it bodes really well for them if they're able to get this number 2 seed, and it's good for the Big Sky Conference if they're able to get the number 2 seed. Now, what are my thoughts about this game? Logan Fife needs to play in this game and needs to start from the first snap for Montana to have a chance in this game. I don't think you play Ayat. He's already hampered with that ankle. I don't think you play him at all. Let Fife play this game and let the team rally behind him. I think the team plays better defensively and offensively when Logan Fife is the starter. Logan Fife plays a little better in this offense when he is the starter. He throws the RPOs. He knows how to make good reads. He knows how to read the box. He makes really good decisions at the quarterback position. He's a good player. He's only thrown 2 interceptions this year, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1,600 yards. He's got a really good completion percentage. I think he's around 70% in completion percentage. He's had a good season. Let that man cook. Let Logan Fife cook. I think that is the only chance you have in this game this season is to play Logan Fife if you want to win the game. He utilizes all his receivers. He plays at a high level. Everybody plays good football with Logan Fife under center. I think you got to start Logan Fife. I think you got to play Logan Fife, and I think you got to just let it fly. You got to let it all hang out. You got to pull out everything you have in this game. Don't leave anything in the chamber. Pull it all out and go get the victory. Now for Montana State, you just got to take advantage in the run game, man. You got to run the ball at a very, very high level. You got to run downhill. You got to run behind your offensive linemen. I mean, you got to do it at a high level in the run game. You got to do it at a high level in the run game to be able to get this victory for Montana State. I think the only chance that Montana has is to stop Montana State in the run game and force Tommy Mellott to beat you in the air. That is the difference maker for that is what Tommy Mellott doesn't do the best of is use his arm. He has been better at using his arm, and he puts the ball in some tight windows, and he can make some throws. He can make some throws. He can make some damn good throws, but that is not his strong suit. His strong suit is using his legs, and I think as a Montana team, if you want to beat him, you got to make him throw it. That is kind of what we did in 2021 when we beat him. We made him throw the ball, and he struggled. Last year when they beat him, they made him throw the ball, and he struggled. I think that's the difference. You know, they've got the advantage. They're at home. Their crowd is going to be loud. Rocking that stadium is going to be amazingly loud. I cannot wait. But I think if Montana wants to have any chance at beating this Montana State team, you got to force Tommy Mellott to throw the ball. It's easier said than done. UC Davis just held them to 160 yards, their lowest output of the year. And if they can do that, that can be the difference. I'm seeing here now that Rohan Jones is the leading receiver for this Montana State team, which is absolutely crazy. Cannot believe their tight end is leading them in receiving yards. Got to believe Taco Dowler is probably not far behind him. Ty McCullough's got 374. Taco Dowler's got 330. None of them have more than 30 receptions on the season. So that is what happens when you play in this Montana State offense. They're going to run the ball. You're not going to get the ball a lot as a receiver. Scott Humphrey's got 1,200 yards. I don't know how much he'll play this week. That is another thing that might help this Montana team out. If Scott Humphrey is unable to play, I don't think Julius Davis and Adam Jones are quite up to the level of Scott Humphrey. It's not a shot at Julius Davis or Adam Jones. I just think that Scott Humphrey is a difference maker. He's a different player than those two guys, and he makes a difference. You saw that yesterday in that UC Davis game. They weren't able to get their run game going, and it was a difference. It was a difference for them. So, yeah, we will see what they are able to do this week. It's going to be an amazing game. I think Fife has to be your guy from snap number 1 for Montana. If they want to even come close to getting a victory, I think he's got to be your guy from the first snap. For the Montana State standpoint, you got to run the ball successfully. Scott Humphrey, I think, needs to be a part of that. If you guys want to be able to have a good run game, he's got to be a part of that. Hopefully, he's able to get healthy this week. Would love for everybody to be healthy in this game, for everybody to come out of this game healthy, but for everybody to be healthy, for them to be able to, everybody have their top dogs so we can see the best game possible. It's going to be a really exciting game played at 12 p.m. on Saturday in Bozeman, Montana. I will be there. If you're not there, you're a square. Just kidding. But that game is going to be played on ESPN Plus. Make sure you guys go check it out. It's going to be the game of the week in the Big Sky. Going to be one of the biggest games in the country this week in FCS football. Everybody's always got their eyes glued on Montana State. Another thing that bodes well for Montana State, they get this victory. That's another ranked victory for them in potential of that number 1 seed. Maybe they'll look at that Montana victory as a thing that, hey, this is a good Montana team. They got 8 wins in the season. They were a ranked opponent. We should give them a seed, the number 1 seed. We will see. But you guys let me know what you guys think about Brawl of the Wild coming up this week. Cat Grizz this week. Leave me a comment down below, and I will move on. Okay. There was a lot of good offensive games in the FCS this week. I'm going to talk about my top Big Sky performances after week 12. Now, we don't have any defensive performances in here. I didn't take the time to look up the defensive stats, so if you guys know some good defensive performances, there was a ton of good offensive performances. So, I'm going to name off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 good offensive performances that I thought were stellar in this week of football. If you guys think there were some really good defensive performances, please leave them in the comments below. Please shout them out in the comments. But offensively, number 1, I got Mr. Lan Larison of UC Davis. 23 carries, 112 yards, 1 touchdown, averaging 4.9 yards a carry, 8 receptions, 109 yards, 13.6 yards a catch. That is 221 total yards and a touchdown against the top-ranked, number 2 ranked Montana State Bobcats. Really good game. Chaz Davis of UC Davis. 4 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown, an average of 32 yards a reception. The only reason I put that on there, the receiving output is kind of average, but 32 yards of reception is amazing. He had a really long reception to end the game. Kakoa Vispris, 4 total touchdowns. 14 of 14 in the passing game, 206 yards, and then he had 9 carries for 48 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. 4 touchdowns on the day, 14 for 14. He had a really good game. You don't see quarterbacks go 100% often, and he did it. He had a crazy game. Jared Taylor, 18 carries, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns, 8.9 yards a carry of Eastern Washington. He had a really, really good game. I mean, a crazy output. He's their Wildcat quarterback. He's their running quarterback. Really good game. They put up 77 points on here. They put up 77 points yesterday, so we got another Eastern Washington guy. 12 receptions for Efton Chisholm III. 12 receptions, 157 yards, and a touchdown. I didn't put the average per catch on here, but, I mean, we know what Efton Chisholm brings to the table. An amazing game. Mark Hamper of Idaho. 8 receptions, 187 yards, 3 touchdowns, 23.4 yards a catch. Mark Hamper is a freshman. He has been absolutely balling this year. He is one of the leaders, probably the leader. He's the leader in the conference in yards per catch. One of the leaders in the country, probably top 10 in the country in yards per catch. The dude is a baller. Hopefully he's able to get close to 900 yards on the season. They got a couple more games. Hopefully he's able to get 1,000 yards in the season. That would be really good for him to be. Got to be a freshman All-American. For sure going to be a freshman All-American this year. He's a baller. Seth Cromwell of Northern Arizona, 17 carries, 155 yards, 1 touchdown, 9.1 yards a carry. Seth Cromwell and NAU are hoping to be a playoff team. Ty Pennington has been playing really, really good football this year. Very efficient. He can run the ball to some extent as well, but he throws the ball to his receivers. He uses them well. Brzee White is a really good tight end for them as well. Probably going to be first-team all-conference guy, if not second-team all-conference tight end. Montana State's Rohan Jones will probably be first-team, even though his stats aren't as good. We will see how that ends up. But those are my top performances offensively. If you guys saw some good defensive performances, please let me know. Sorry that I had to leave out the defensive performances this week. I'm an offensive guy. Those are the offensive performances from this week. You guys let me know, and I will move on. Okay. We're coming up on the last week of the season, so we are going to go around the FCS and check out what is going on around the FCS. There's a lot of good football being played in the FCS. One more week left, so we'll see what is going on in each conference, and we're going to start with the Big Sky Conference. 7-0 in conference play, Montana State. 11-0 overall. 9-2 UC Davis. 6-1 overall. And then you got the Vandals and Grizzlies both at 5-2 in conference and 8-3 overall. And then hopefully Northern Arizona at 5-2 in conference and 7-4 overall. Hopefully Northern Arizona is able to get to that 8-win mark to get into the playoffs. Maybe they get in the playoffs. They're going to be a bubble team, so we'll see what the last week of the season shows for a lot of these teams, but we will see. Montana State is looking to go undefeated. I don't know if they've ever gone undefeated, so they could go undefeated for the first time ever. Get 12 wins on the season in the regular season. Get that number 2 seed, maybe that number 1 seed. But they're playing really good football. They're hoping that it bodes well for them coming down to the last game of the season. They played really good football. They're playing really good defense. They're holding teams to low point totals, and they look really good. They're the auto bid coming out of the Big Sky. They have clinched it already. So, yeah, good for them. Now you got the Big South OVC Association. Southeast Missouri is 6-1. They are still the leader in that Big South OVC. I don't know if they've already clinched that auto bid. They probably got to win this last game to get that auto bid because they play Tennessee State, who's 8-3. Tennessee State is 5-2 in conference, so there could be a shared. They could share the title. I mean, I don't know some of these other teams, but there's a lot of teams who potentially could win that title in that conference, depending on how they work it out. But there's 3 teams who are 5-2 right now. If Southeast Missouri loses to Tennessee State, they'll be 6-2. Tennessee State will also be 6-2 in conference. And then I don't know about Tennessee Tech and UT Martin. Let's see who Tennessee Tech and UT Martin. Wrong one. Let's see who Tennessee Tech and UT Martin play this week. They play East Illinois, so they could be 6-2, and UT Martin could also be 6-2. So potentially, what I'm seeing is this title in the Big South OVC could be shared between 4 teams. Now, I don't know who gets the auto bid. I think head-to-heads play a part in that. Point totals will probably eventually play a part in that too, like what margin of victory. There's a lot that goes into deciding how you decide a point total in that from that standpoint. But, really good game from a really good conference in the Big South OVC. Probably only going to have 1 to 2 maybe playoff teams, but we will see. Southeast Missouri is 6-1 right now, so it's their conference title to lose. They have to win this week against Tennessee State, and they can win that title. We will see. CAA, you got Richmond, who's 7-0, 9-2 overall. Delaware, not playoff contender, but they're 9-1, 6-1 in conference, 9-1 overall. Rhode Island is 9-2 overall, 6-1 in conference. Rhode Island will play against Bryant this week. They are hoping to get a victory. They are for sure going to be a playoff team this year. And then you got Richmond and William and Mary. William and Mary can play spoiler and help get Rhode Island their title. Villanova got upset yesterday against Monmouth. I believe those teams are both in Pennsylvania. No, Monmouth is in Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know exactly where Monmouth is, but Villanova is in Philadelphia, and they got the victory. They lost yesterday, and they could lose another one. They played Delaware to finish the season. Monmouth could finish the season. Villanova could finish the season 8-3 after losing to Monmouth. I know Monmouth is not one of the better teams. They're 3-4 overall, 5-6 in conference. Villanova just must be a rival because they came in and spoiled Villanova's party. It's really Richmond's conference title to lose. I don't know so much what Villanova or what Richmond's strength of schedule is like, but they're 9-2 overall, so for sure a playoff team. Rhode Island is for sure a playoff team, and Villanova is still probably going to be a playoff team. You got Stony Brook and you got New Hampshire in there as well. The CAA could have a few playoff teams. William and Mary, if they're able to get a victory, they could maybe slide into the playoffs. We will see how that is weighed, but CAA is looking to have at least 3, maybe 4 or 5 playoff teams in that conference. There's a ton of teams in that conference. So we will see. But Richmond right now, it's their conference title to lose. So we will see what they're able to do against William and Mary this week. That's probably going to be one of the games of the week. In the FCS, you have Ivy League, not eligible. Let's go to the Missouri Valley. Missouri Valley got North Dakota State, who's 10-1. 1 being Colorado. Those 10 being all FCS opponents. They're undefeated in the FCS, 7-0 in conference play. Their biggest win this season coming against South Dakota State. They will play South Dakota this week. South Dakota is 8-2 overall. They are 1 game short of everybody else. That could potentially really hurt South Dakota. I think they'll still be a playoff team, even if they lose to North Dakota State this week. I think they should be. They would have beat Portland State. They didn't get the chance to play them. They're 6-1 in conference, though. If they are able to get the victory this week, South Dakota is, they can spoil the party for North Dakota State. That conference title could be shared 3 ways. North Dakota State could get a share of the title. South Dakota State could get a share of the title. Could Missouri State get a share of the title too? Who does Missouri? I think Missouri State plays South Dakota State this week. So one of them are going to lose, and one of them are going to be out of that standing. But the conference title could be shared 3 ways in the Missouri Valley. You could have North Dakota State win a share of it. You could have South Dakota State win a share of it. You could have South Dakota win a share of it, and you could have Missouri State win a share of it. Obviously, South Dakota has to beat North Dakota State. That is the question that everybody wants answers to. That game this week in North Dakota State is going to be played. I'm going to move my iPad over here. It is about to die. That game against South Dakota and North Dakota State is going to be played in South Dakota, Vermillion, South Dakota. So a lot of eyes on that game this week. It's going to be very interesting to see who's able to come away with that victory this week. But on the road, North Dakota State plays good on the road. They play good at home as well. So we will see what they're able to do. But that they should have at least 3 playoff teams, and that they could have 4, maybe 4 playoff teams. Illinois State's 8-3 as well. Missouri State's not playoff eligible. They could have at least three. They're going to have at least three teams in that Missouri Valley: South Dakota State, North Dakota State, and I think South Dakota. It's safe to say South Dakota is probably a lock in that playoff. You could also potentially get Illinois State. They're probably going to be a bubble team. We will see how it shakes out for them, but they're definitely going to be a bubble team. We will see. The NEC Conference, Duquesne, who's still undefeated against the FCS, they are 8-2 overall. They will play, I think, a pretty easy game this week against Central Connecticut, 6-5. So we'll see how they're able to do against Central Connecticut. But they're 5-0 in conference play. They're looking to win that NEC Conference. Central Connecticut could play spoiler and potentially get a share of that title this week. So another conference title game being played this week in the NEC Conference. You could say that South Dakota versus North Dakota State game is a conference championship game as well. But Duquesne, if they can win this week, they'll get the auto bid for the. I don't know if NEC has an auto bid, but they'll get the auto bid from the NEC and get the playoff, be undefeated against the FCS in the regular season. Duquesne's been the best team in that NEC conference, but nobody in that NEC conference is really strong. That's not a strong conference, so take that for what it is. You got the Patriot League, 7-3 Lehigh. They are looking to be the playoff team out of that Patriot League. I don't think anybody else out of that Patriot League will get in the playoffs. I know nobody else. Lehigh has to beat Lafayette this week. Lafayette is 6-5. Lehigh is 7-3. Lafayette has had a rough season. They are 2-3 in conference, 6-5 overall. I thought they would be better this year. I thought they would win the Patriot League this year. That's not the case. Lehigh is the team to beat in that conference. They can finish the season at 8-3, be the auto bid out of the Patriot League if they win this week. Holy Cross also could win a share of that. Well, I don't know actually. So Holy Cross, Lehigh, both will be 5-1 if they both win this week in conference play. Although Holy Cross will only be 6-6. I don't know who gets the auto bid. I think the head-to-head will take precedent in that in terms of who gets and Lehigh has the head-to-head. So they will probably get the auto bid out of that conference. And they'll be the playoff team, and Holy Cross will be SOL. Sorry for Holy Cross that they're not going to get that auto bid, but that's how it works out. You got to win the games in front of you. With a 6-6 record, you didn't make it hard for them to pick against you. You got Drake, who's 6-1 in conference. Oh my goodness. I didn't even see this. What? So Drake yesterday lost to Morehead State. And Morehead State still can't even win the conference. Drake is 7-1 or 7-2 now, 6-1 in conference. They play Stetson. Drake will still win the conference, the Pioneer League. They'll still get the auto bid from the Pioneer because each other team, Butler, San Diego, and Morehead, have 2 conference losses. Morehead State has been a better team than I thought they would be. Nobody in that Pioneer League is going to make a run in the playoffs. They don't play good football outside of conference play. They get beat up in non-conference play, and then they beat up on each other in conference play. Butler is 9-2. Got to believe that Butler may potentially be another playoff team, even though they're 5-2 in conference. They got 9 wins. That is eligible for the playoffs, so they're probably going to be another bubble team. You look at strength of schedule. Who are Butler's losses to? Butler lost to so they had a game canceled. This is Drake. This is not Butler. Drake had a game canceled. That's tough. Let's look at Butler. Who are their losses to? Their losses are to Dayton, 21-14, and then they also lost to. It looks like they only have one loss. I know I'm missing one. Oh, they lost to Drake. Butler lost to Drake, and then they lost to Dayton. Back-to-back weeks. Other than that, they've run the table this year. They're 9-2. Gotta believe Butler's probably gonna be a playoff team, or at least on the bubble. Strength of schedule probably doesn't weigh in their favor, but they've won most of the games that they've played this year. So but Drake is most likely gonna get that auto bid if they beat Stetson this week. Stetson is 2-8. They're the worst team in that conference. They're 0-6 in conference play in the Pioneer League Conference. So gotta believe Stetson's probably gonna get that auto bid in that conference. We got the Southern Conference, the SoCon. You got Mercer, who's 9-2. Obviously, they just lost to Alabama. Andrew Hauck was like, Alabama upset Mercer. Tough game for them, but they're 6-1 in conference. Western Carolina is 5-2 in that conference. Mercer already beat Western Carolina, so that doesn't bode well. But you got Furman, who could play spoiler this week and have Western Carolina potentially. Mercer's still going to get the auto bid. They beat Western Carolina, so even if they tie in that conference, Mercer would still get the auto bid. They're 9-2. There's probably not going to be any other playoff teams. I know for sure there's not going to be any other playoff teams in that SoCon. Mercer, win, lose, or draw tomorrow, will be a playoff team, so they can finish 9-3 or they can finish 10-2. They will get that playoff bid out of that Southern Conference. Whether they win the conference outright or not, Western Carolina could win a share of the SoCon, but they still will not be a playoff team. Mercer will be the playoff team in that conference. They'll get the auto bid because they have the head-to-head. So Mercer, I think, has locked up. Does that mean they've locked up the auto bid out of that conference? I think that's one of the ones that Sam Herder had posted. They've locked up that auto bid because no matter what, they will be, whether they win, lose, or draw tomorrow, they're going to win the SoCon. They're going to win a share of the SoCon, and they're also going to win the auto bid out of the conference. So, yep, Mercer, the one team out of the SoCon. Southland Conference, you have Incarnate Word, who's 6-0. I think they've also locked up their auto bid because even if they lose tomorrow, they've beat Sela, who they could tie with, and they've also beat Stephen F. Austin, who they could also tie with in conference standings. Well, no, Stephen F. Austin has 3 losses, so they could tie with Sela, who could get a share of the Southland Conference title, but they'll get the auto bid because they already beat Sela in the head-to-head. They are 9-2. If Incarnate Word makes the play, Incarnate Word is the only hope, is the only team that's going to make the playoffs out of that conference. They are 9-2. They can finish the season 10-2. They will play against East Texas A&M tomorrow, who's undefeated. Since they've changed their name, they're undefeated. I think they're 2-0 since they changed it to East Texas. But they're 3-8 overall. Incarnate Word should finish the season 10-2 once they get the victory against East Texas A&M, which is formerly Texas A&M Commerce. Incarnate Word's the only playoff team out of that Southland Conference. So then you look at the Southland, you look at the SoCon, both getting only one playoff team. You look at Pioneer, maybe getting 2 playoff teams, but you start to develop the bubble. The Patriot League's only going to get 1. The Northeast Conference is only going to get 1. The Missouri Valley could get 3 or 4. The Big Sky could get 3 or 4, maybe 5. Then you start to look at the CAA, who could get 4, 3 or 4. You start to kind of develop who these playoff teams are going to be. You start to take a look at what the bracket could look like. You start to look at all of that. But Incarnate Word's going to be the playoff team out of that Southland Conference. Nobody else is going to make the playoffs. They've already locked up the auto bid out of that conference as well. Now we're just waiting to see if they win them all. They win the conference outright, 7-0 in conference play. Last but certainly not least, we're going to go to the UAC, who could have 2 playoff teams. Tarleton is going to be on the bubble, but Abilene Christian has really locked up that auto bid out of that conference because even if they lose tomorrow, they will still be tied with Eastern Kentucky. Well, did they beat Eastern Kentucky? Let's go look at Abilene Christian. Did they beat Eastern Kentucky this year? They did beat Eastern Kentucky 34-20. And then they beat Tarleton yesterday as well. So Abilene Christian has locked up that auto bid out of that. Well, did they beat Southern Utah? I think they beat Southern Utah. They have 1 loss. Yeah, they beat Southern Utah. So all the teams who they could tie with if they take an L next week or this week against Stephen F. Austin, they've beat them already. So they could lock up that auto bid out of that. They have already locked up that auto bid out of the conference. They have the head-to-heads against Tarleton, Eastern, and Southern Utah. So they've locked up that auto bid. But I do think the UAC could potentially get 2 playoff teams. I think if Tarleton is able to win this week against Central Arkansas, they will get a playoff team. They'll be 9-3. And then Abilene Christian, if they win this week, not only have they already locked up the auto bid, but they can also win the conference outright, and they will be 9-3 as well. So 2 9-3 teams out of that UAC conference. I think it's hard to keep either of those teams out. You really look for 8 wins, but a team with 9 wins, they got to be a playoff team. They got to be a playoff team for sure. So in terms, if we go back to the Pioneer League, that looks really good for the Pioneer League. If they're able to get 2 playoff teams into the FCS playoffs this year, that looks really, really good competitive-wise. And then the UAC too, which I thought previously was a weaker conference, but when you really look at it, I think they play some strong football. They got one of the best, probably the best running back in the country in that conference. One of the best running backs in the country. You know, Kayvon Britton and Shunderick Powell, 2 players, really good players. But Lamson has 1,700 rushing yards. He's been playing at a high level, averaging 6 yards a carry, 288 carries, 1758, 21 touchdowns on the season. Is he potentially a Walter Payton guy? He's going to get a ton of accolades. He's going to be an All-American this year. Good player. But you got Abilene Christian getting the auto bid out of the UAC. And yeah, that is that. So you guys let me know what you think about what's going on around the conference. Let me know what conference you're tapped into. Let me know what team you're tapped into for next week. And I will move on. Okay, I want to look at the last week in the conference, in the Big Sky Conference, look at all the games that are taking place, and talk about what I think and who I think you should have your eyes on in the Big Sky Conference. My preview for the Big Sky Conference, first up, the first game of the day, Cat Grizz, 12 p.m. on ESPN Plus in Bozeman, Montana. 8-3 Montana takes on undefeated 11-0 Montana State at 12 p.m. on ESPN Plus in Bozeman, Montana. You guys already can go back and watch my thoughts about that game. I think that's going to be a really good game. I think that has a lot hanging in the balance. Obviously, Montana State already has a share of the Big Sky title, but obviously also you're going to see who's going to walk away with bragging rights for the next year? Montana won last year at home. It's been a home and home type thing since 2019. The home team has won, and we will see if that will continue. That game is at 12 p.m. on ESPN Plus in Bozeman. If you're not there, be square. Cal Poly at Weber State. 3-7 Cal Poly versus a 3-8 Weber State. 1 p.m. on ESPN Plus in Ogden, Utah. You guys can go watch that game if you want. I don't think very highly of that game. That is what it is. You got Eastern Washington versus Northern Arizona. Eastern Washington could play spoiler for Northern Arizona. I'm telling you right now, a 7-win team is not getting into the playoffs. It's just not going to happen. There's too many good teams. There's too many teams that played 12 games this year. A 7-win team will not get in the playoffs. Eastern Washington can play spoiler this week against Northern Arizona. 4-7 Eastern Washington versus a 7-4 Northern Arizona. That game is going to be played in Flagstaff, Arizona, at 1 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Go check that game out. That could be a pretty decent game. Eastern Washington is going to be laying it all out. Efton Chisholm, the last game of his career, his illustrious, very decorated career. He's got to show out this week. They're going to want to show out for him. They're going to want to go out with a boom for him. So Northern Arizona's got to pack their lunch. The altitude plays in their favor. They're at home. So those are some things that play in their favor. But we will see. Northern Colorado versus Portland State. 1-10 Northern Colorado versus 2-8 Portland State. I don't think very highly of that game at all. I don't think very highly of anything that's going on in Northern Colorado or Portland State. That game is going to be played in Portland, Oregon at 2 p.m. on ESPN Plus. Go check it out if you want. UC Davis versus Sacramento State. Sacramento State is not a good football team this year. They are 3-8. That game is being played in Sacramento, California, but just down the street from UC Davis. So there's probably going to be a ton of Davis fans there. Probably not a lot of Sac State fans there. They're playing for nothing. They're only playing to potentially spoil the hopes of UC Davis maybe getting a share of that Big Sky title. But they have to hope that Montana beats Montana State to even have a hope to get that Big Sky title, a share of that Big Sky title. So that game is going to be played at 3 p.m. on ESPN Plus in Sacramento, California. Tap in if you want. You know which game I'm telling you to tap into. Idaho versus Idaho State. 5-6 Idaho State versus the 8-3 Idaho. Idaho could win in the season with 9 regular season wins. That is for sure a playoff resume. They have an FBS win. They're a playoff team locked right now. I think they're a locked playoff team, but if they win, that just strengthens their resume and potentially gets them a seed. Idaho could potentially get a seed. We will see. That game is going to be played. That's the last game of the day, and it's a 4 p.m. kickoff. So early day, last games of the season for all these teams is an early day that starts at 12 p.m., 11 p.m. for some of those West Coast guys with the Montana versus Montana State game. But Idaho versus Idaho State could potentially try to win their rivalry game. That game is being played in Pocatello, Idaho. And, you know, Idaho State could finish the season 500. But Idaho, they really will look to close this game out. Idaho State doesn't play good defense. Idaho needs to really put the points up, run it up, and, you know, play strong defense, get to the quarterback, make Kobe Tracy uncomfortable, and walk out of that game with a 9-3 record to finish the regular season, making it very hard for them not to be chosen potentially for a seed, for sure a top 16 seed, but maybe potentially a top 8 seed. We will see what that brings. But those are the top games. Those are all the games in the Big Sky Conference. You guys let me know what you guys are going to be tapped into. I know what everybody's going to be tapped into, but let me know if there's another game that you think can be interesting, and let me know why that reasoning. Leave me a comment down below, and I will move on. Okay, I want to thank you guys for tapping into the channel. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for viewing the channel. Thank you guys for continuing to support me. I appreciate every time somebody comes up to me and tells me they support my channel. I thank you guys so much. Tell a friend about me. Share the channel around. Subscribe. I need all the subscribers I can get. I'm close to 1,500. I want to get to 2,000. ASAP Rocky, but I appreciate all the support. Make sure you guys check out Under the Helmet. You guys can check out the video on my channel. You guys can also check out the audio on Skyline Sports. Anything I do, this video, the audio of this video will be on Skyline Sports, the Big Sky Breakdown podcast network. All of everything I do will be audio through Skyline Sports, through the Big Sky Breakdown podcast network. So you guys can check out all my audio of anything I do on Skyline Sports and the podcast network, the Big Sky Breakdown podcast network. So please continue to support everything I do. Please continue to give me some listens, give me some views. I thank you guys so much. I will catch you guys next week following the playoff show. I may try to do something to talk about the selection show, maybe do something live. I don't know yet. I've never live streamed anything. I might try to live stream my reactions to as they're picking the Big Sky, picking the picks for the selection show. We will see. Might try to do something like that. But you guys let me know in the comments what you guys think about everything this week, what's going on in FCS football.